Go ahead and call this meeting to order. You'll all please stand and say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll.
Councilmember Everett.
Here. Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Rapp.
Here. I can get a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
First and second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Go ahead and open up for public comment. You have 4 minutes for your public comment. Please adhere to that.
I'd like to clarify something I brought up with them in the last meeting about the written correspondence that was about. That wasn't about the variance, it was about written correspondence. My wife has wrote several letters to this city, and they've never put them on the bench. And matter of fact, the one that was really, should have been done is the one for the second prison. They would not even hear her, and she had facts about how much dump there was, how much traffic increased, and the city council did not listen to one thing. And the sergeant says it was a well-written letter, and they never published it back here so the people could get up like Lori did and explain it. That's what I was pissed off about. I still am. That's not right. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Larry. Do we have any further public comment from the phone? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Move on to the regular agenda. Item number 1, Finance Department. Going to give us a look at the budget.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Ratton and council. Before you is the general fund budget projections for council's review and revision. This is definitely not a final version of it, and we want to go over the individual expenditures and revenue and adjust as necessary. The budget, it's a fluid document, and it's a roadmap to refer to and in order to stay on track with the budget. In the unprecedented times that we're currently faced with, these projections can change significantly. Most likely a supplemental budget will be required shortly after the beginning of the calendar year. As we work through these numbers, please be aware that the calculations that we're going to go over tonight only cover the general fund. Within fund accounting, we utilize cost allocations amongst the funds. So a portion of the expenditures and revenues that we're seeing tonight are also allocated to other special revenue funds that we will go through at our next budget meeting.
And that'll be on the 29th, Tuesday the 29th at 6 p.m.
Just to recap real quickly, some significant increases that we have in the budget is our insurance costs. There has been a huge increase in them. The workman's compensation increased 18% over last fiscal year from $78,257 to $92,075. Property insurance increased 28% from $58,800 to $75,000. And liability insurance increased 2.5% from $77,000 to $79,000. So overall, with those increases, that adds up to $32,161 increase over last year's costs for liability, property, and workman's comp.
What page are you on there, Lori?
I haven't even started.
Oh, you did.
Sorry.
It was off the cuff.
Haven't even got there yet.
Okay.
I was just recapping a few of the things before we get into it. The employee wages that are listed reflect a 2% COLA increase across the board for all staff. Wage projections are, again, only for the general fund portion. The fire department wages are fully paid by Measure M, so you're not going to see any wages for the fire department. Police department wages are allocated between the general fund, COPS grant, funds received directly from Buena Vista Casino, and additional casino revenue that is received from Amador County and from CFD public safety funds. So tonight you're only going to see the general fund portion of that. The city clerk's compensation was increased by $2,400 annually. We have 2 officers that are being promoted to sergeant, or being proposed to be promoted to sergeant. And 2 officers are currently working on furloughed hours, 72 hours per pay period as opposed to 80. We have several contracts within the general fund. Viking pool maintenance is $15,000 per year. Prentice Long HR services are $12,000 a year. Prentice Long legal retainer is $72,000 per year. De novo planning is on a per hour basis, as is Coastland as well. So I just wanted to go over those and let you know that those contracts will be within the budget I'm going to go over right now. Is there any questions before I get started?
I have one on the property tax increase or property insurance. What was driving that?
From what I understood, according to John, was that we were in the same pool as Paradise, and we're starting to see the increases on that
Yeah.
because of the fire.
That's hitting us hard, and it'll hit us for the next few years. But yeah, we are in the same pool as the city of Paradise.
Are we looking to shop that at all?
That'll be something for council to decide. One of the things in terms of getting into the JPAs, sometimes they're not really,
They're hard to get out of.
they're hard to get out of, and other JPAs may not all be excited about bringing somebody new in.
Yeah, 28% for property though, that's, for us anyway, that's a lot. And I assume our workers' comp went up by 18% because of our losses?
I'm not aware why the workman's comp portion went up.
Again, we're in a pool that the losses in the pool reflected that adjustment.
I'm only aware of one,
Yeah, we haven't had a
so I
whole
don't
lot.
think that it was due to.
It wasn't due to our poor
No.
claim history, it's the pool in general is not functioning.
It's the pool,
And are we in the same, we're in the same JPA for both of these?
right?
And liability is 2%, that's not that big of a deal. Okay,
Any other questions? Okay. So, just so you know, this budget was produced out of our new software, so this is what our reports are going to look like. I hope that it's a little bit easier to read. We've renumbered the chart of accounts, and hopefully the layout is a little bit easier to read. Beginning with the current secured property tax, we're keeping that static. It's actually a 10% decrease from the actual amount that was received in last fiscal year, but it is exactly the same as what the adopted budget was last year. There may be a decrease. I think that we will eventually receive everything. I'm just foreseeing that the money isn't all going to come in as normal when it's due. I think that that's going to be spread out a little bit. The property tax in lieu of VLF is the same thing. It's a 10% decrease from the actual at $896,000. Sales and use tax was decreased by 18% from the prior fiscal year budget to $143,670. TOT tax was projected at $1,500. If the outstanding TOT tax ever comes in, that's going to raise that, but we had budgeted in the past, the money didn't come in, and then we had a shortfall. So we're just going to budget what we're anticipating on that. Franchise tax is projected at a 12% reduction from last year's actual, which was, it was $106,000 last year. We projected it at $94,000 this year. Business license are projected at $20,000, which is a 33% increase over the prior year budget. The final year to date for last year was $19,800, and I think that the majority of that is based on catching everybody that should be having a business license now with the new software. It's coming along. It's been a lot of work this first year to get that all set up, but once it's set up, then we know who everyone in town is that should be purchasing a new business license.
Why is it a tax, not a fee?
Because that's how the state categorizes it. On these revenue sources, they dictate to us.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I would think that it was a fee also, but it's categorized as a tax.
And Laura, you said franchise tax was 106 previous? It says 100 on mine.
Yeah, and mine maybe have been updated. It actually was 106, 610, 30. I just reran this today.
106.
$106,610.30.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Real property transfer tax is projected at a 5% increase over the prior year budget of $24,000, so that totals $26,000, which is a decrease from what we actually received. As you can see, I've been conservative on all of these numbers. With the pandemic, we don't know what's going to happen, and I don't want to project our revenues and get into the year and not have money to pay our expenses. So I think you can kind of see all through there that I've been extremely conservative with those numbers. Construction, the next portion is licenses and permits, and the construction permits are projected at $210,000, which is a reduction of 5% over the actual from last year. Fire inspection fee is projected the same as it had been last year. Encroachment permit is projected at $1,000. Concealed weapon permits is projected at $1,500 for a total license and permits of $215,076.
And the CCWs is the reason why it went down. I know it's a biannual thing, so every year you have to renew, so there'll be a cycle there to begin with. Just to put too fine a point on it. Every 2 years you have to license, so some years is going to be higher, some will be lower, just based on that.
Okay.
Well, it's based on when they, you can have a number of people get it 1 year, and then the next year, a number of people get it, so that's not totally accurate.
Okay, all right.
Because, they'll follow the suit, so.
Okay.
And if you look at the first two columns, in 2017, 2018, there was $1,630 received, and then in the year 18, 19, $2,244. So it did drop substantially during this past year, down to $1,354. So the license and permits total $215,076. Fines and forfeitures. This vehicle code fines may be reclassified to a restricted police department fund. This is one of the line items that's in question, possibly to be moved. To date, for the fiscal year ending June 2020, the total revenue was $7,512.79, and the projected budget for this line item is $9,000. Finance charges are projected at $2,000. There has not been finance charges before in the general fund. This will be associated with the business licenses. After a specific date, we'll begin running finance charges on those business licenses. Parking citation revenue is projected at $1,000 for a total fine and forfeitures of $12,000. Use of money and property. Investment income is projected with a 7% increase over the prior year budget to $24,000. Rental revenue is projected at $34,000, which is a $20,000 decrease over last year's budget. And this is something I think that we need to talk about a little bit. The shortfall in the revenue was due to the COVID, and there were several rentals at EB Hall that had to be canceled because they weren't allowed to have anything out there. In addition, the soccer revenue was not received at all last year. It was not billed as well, and that is a question of how council wants to deal with that. They weren't able to have the soccer games, but we also did not bill them for the fields. I believe it was baseball as well.
Yeah, Little League was the same way.
Yes.
They weren't able to have the season, so we didn't bill.
Somebody's having a season out there every Sunday morning.
Not Little League.
No, they're kids in uniform
Okay.
every Sunday morning. Somebody's using that field.
Well, we have a contract with them, but to date, we have not received anything, but we also have not billed it.
Well, somebody told me they were from out of the county, but I don't know who they are.
Okay. I'll go, technically, it's a park, but we could find out, but like I said, in terms of the agreement with Little League, they weren't able to have a season, so they weren't charging. I don't think Little League ever played on Sunday mornings.
Saturdays.
What were we charging Little League and soccer?
The soccer is $4,000 per year, and I don't have the Little League in front of me.
That's fine, that's
I
fine.
thought it was similar to that too.
We just need to put that on a future council agenda item of whether we're gonna, so we can officially either waive
Yes.
it or not waive it.
The other thing is also the arena. They have not paid since March, so
Have they been using the arena?
Yeah, they've been using, but again, because of everything in terms of the COVID that got shut down.
I think, yeah, we just need to discuss what we're gonna do with that. I mean, if their season. Yeah,
The
if
arena's been happening a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're still able to function, you should pay something, and if you're not, then, I don't know what the contract says if you don't have an event, so, I mean, there's still maintenance costs and so on and so forth, but.
That's accurate, yes, there has been quite a few expenditures that have come in. The contract for the soccer does say that the contract can be revisited if there's a reason that they're unable to have their games out there. I do not know about the arena or the Little League contract, but the soccer does.
The arena is a strict lease agreement, right? So it's a payment of a lease?
Mhm. And I believe
we don't
it was-
bill that, that's just, we do bill it monthly?
No, we do not bill it.
It's just to be paid monthly.
And yes, and I believe when it first started, was that not supposed to be revisited because it's only $1,000 a month? And I thought,
There was an adjustment in the contract after like 6 months, and then we had the COVID thing around in there, and everything kind of shut down.
The first 6 months, it was $1,000 a month, and then after that, it was $1,400 a month. And they were supposed to be paying utilities on top of that after 6 months. And, it was a 1-year contract, couldn't be renewed up to 5 years. So the contract was up in September.
Well, their contract is up? Okay.
and the last item on the use of money and property on this page was for the golf course lease, and that is $40,000, and that's what it's budgeted at, $40,000. So the total use of money and property is $98,000 is what has been budgeted for that.
I'm just going to make a quick comment. So even though the golf course has been closed in some capacity, that's still the same. But the other rentals that have been closed get an adjustment. Just saying. That's why I think it's a big deal to talk about adjustments and what is going to happen, outside of this budget meeting, because nobody's property taxes got reduced. So, I personally feel it's unfair that, the government is shutting everything down, but the government is still collecting all of its fees. And I'm not necessarily talking about this government, I'm talking about bigger government, but it is a problem.
Well, I think we need to be consistent.
And the golf course does have that fee set that if the revenues are under a certain amount, there's not additional costs above the 40,000. It had been 43,000 up till last year, and then starting last year, it was dropped to 40,000 and then a percentage of the gross revenue. The intergovernmental homeowners property tax relief is $8,000. Last year, $8,900 was received for that. Vehicle license fee collection is budgeted at $5,100. Last year, $6,324 was received for that line item. Grant revenue, state, consists of 3 separate grants. There is $4,000 for an ABC grant for the police department, $80,000 for the SB2 planning grant for the general plan and the housing ordinance. That's 50% of what the grant the total of the grant is. We don't foresee that the expenditures will be needed in the next fiscal year, so we split it between the next 2 budgets. And $178,000 for the per capita grant for the parks. The $98,000 is for the Department of Finance COVID grant. $68,000 is for the state CARES COVID grant. Of the 115,000, 65,000 of that is coming from the county for COVID reimbursement of expenses. And there's a possibility that there may be another $50,000 that would be received. And if that additional revenue is received, then that would go towards the EB Hall to replace the roof. The total intergovernmental revenue that is projected to be received next year is $556,400. Charges for services, administrative fees, $5,700. That's reimbursement for staff's time on CFDs and lighting and landscaping tasks that are handled in-house. Plan check fees, a 3% reduction in last year's budget at $120,000. Planning and engineering reimbursement. This is charges for services that are charged back to the developer. The city's charged the expenses, and it's fees that the city is paying to Coastland and then turns around and bills to the developers. So it's money in and money out. So that was $100,000. Legal reimbursement, $10,000. That's the same thing when the city's retainer pays for any services for developers that are billable. That this is where that money comes back into the city. $8,000 for building inspection fees. Planning fees, $12,000, which is a reduction of 33% over the prior year actual.
Why such a big reduction on that?
Oh, because of the COVID, where so much of that has either stopped or been reduced.
So, Lori, a quick question. So we've had a 5% reduction, an 18%, and a 33. So where do we come up with the? I mean, this is just like a forecast, and you're obviously doing the best you can. But so where do you come up with the percentage reductions?
So I've taken part in several webinars that CGFOA has put on and got those forecasts that way, and then looked at the revenue that has been coming in and how it's been affected, whether it is continuing to stay on track or falling below or going above. So that's where those projections are coming from.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Total charges for services is $257,755. Miscellaneous revenue is $2,000. Miscellaneous reimbursements, $11,000, and that changes. There is, that was projected exactly the same as it was last year. From year to year, we do not know what's going to come in on that. For total miscellaneous revenue of $18,483. Other financing sources, surplus items sold. This includes 2 surplus lots. There's a transfer out for $22,000, and that is principal on interfund borrowing for a total of $62,343 for other financing sources. With those items, the total revenue is projected for next year at $3,077,237. The city council budget is projected at 34,182. There is little change in here. One of the items that was increased was the membership and dues was increased by 1,000. Staff recruitment, there's a staff recruitment included in there. We're trying to track that to see how much is actually costing employee turnover, what the cost is. So that's been added into most of the departments that has more than a couple employees, just to kind of track that and see where that's going. So that kind of covers this.
You don't have any, you only have $250 in for computer software, computer upgrades? Is that just this location's piece of the pie, or, okay,
Yeah, that's just city council's portion.
okay.
Yeah. City clerk is, their department is projected at $38,249, which is an increase of $857 over the prior year budget. Included in that is election costs of $5,000 and municipal code update of $2,500. And everything else is pretty much static in there. City treasurer's budget is $3,047, and that department is kind of up in the air depending on how that's handled. I'm not sure exactly what's gonna happen with that department, since we're not going to have a city treasurer at the end of the year.
I did email Sophia to ask her what the procedure would be,
I did too.
because I know in normal elections, if you don't appoint somebody within 30 days to fill that vacancy, you have to have a special.
Right. Well, we have to see how the election goes first.
Well, to try and see, so I'm just talking about that one position. So, trying to avoid that for the city. But she hasn't gotten that yet.
The administrative department, that was combined, city manager and finance department on last year's budget. That budget increased $2,063 over last year's projections. The actual amount that was spent last year was $80,000, so it came in quite a bit under. The expenditures did quite a bit under what was projected.
And what exactly is under administrative?
City manager is, and finance department combined together.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to your software and computer upgrades. You said they're not showing up in here at all, other than your software program, but you don't have anything for upgrades? Is that not something that you're going to have come this budget year?
So where most of the computer costs are in general services, which is Department 94, because it is spread across all departments. So rather, when we were budgeting the software previously over the prior 2 years, that was to purchase the software, and that software has now been purchased. So that's why those amounts have dropped off of the individual departments.
Okay, so I need to understand, if this is a across the board, that's why I asked the question initially, is your software and computer upgrades, you have it under city council, you have allocated $250. But I don't see it in the other, on the other line items for the other departments. And frankly, we are woefully under computerized.
There's $3,000 that is budgeted in line 6166.
For,
Under administrative,
under administrative.
and you gotta go back.
Get full programs.
Yeah, you're calling that software programs, which is, that's, to me, in my mind, that means that is you're purchasing programs, new. It's not upgrading and, as it should be, software, computer, and upgrades. And you're gonna have, at some point in time, you're gonna have to upgrade your software.
Our software is now purchased and we pay hosting fees for it because it's cloud-based. so
Right,
we
but
pay
at some
hosting
point, they're
fees.
gonna upgrade their system, and there's going to be upgrades required. At some point, you're gonna need new computers. At some point, upgrades in the computer system have to be accounted for. They can be expensive. So that's why $3,000 here is fine. You got $250 here, but this is, in some cases, it's gonna be a shared allocation and should be allocated out to all departments.
Yes.
The police department, I'm sure, has some computer upgrades that they would like to have, or need, or should have.
Yeah, and it's minimal because of the reduced revenues, we pulled our expenses down to the bare bones to try to be balanced.
Okay,
So,
all right. Got it.
and one of the places that we normally allocate quite a bit of the software is to the sewer department, because the sewer department is handling the billings and all of that, the cash receipting.
Mhm.
Everything that comes in through there is sewer related. So a big portion of the software goes.
You're allocating it over to that fund?
Yes.
Okay.
So Lori, is the admin assistant under administration? Salary?
Yes, but it's allocated, yes, but she is, for many years, she was allocated under city clerk. But now she is allocated under administrative and across the funds, across several funds.
Oh, okay.
Were there any other questions on this department?
Yep.
The legal department, the amount that's currently allocated in the general fund is $30,000. The other funds currently have $42,000 allocated to them. This may have to be adjusted, but for now, that's how we were able to allocate it. There's $12,000 of human resources in the general fund. A portion of that will have to be allocated to the other funds as well. There's $20,000 for litigation expenses. And there is nothing currently budgeted if there's any litigation settlements that are foreseen in this next fiscal year. We currently have no litigation settlement budgeted. That totals $62,000 for that, for the legal department. Police department. The allocations for the wages are for specific officers that are being paid by the general fund. So this is a portion, again, a portion of the expenditures that the city is paying. This is the general fund portion. So if we drop all the way down to 6111 is where we begin with the operation and maintenance costs. The office supplies have been reduced from 3,500 to 2,000. Safety equipment, 11,600. Training supplies, which is ammunition, 1,000. Training costs, 6,500. And that's been reduced significantly from the 9,500 from the prior year. Staff recruitment, $1,000. Volunteer supplies, $300. Clothing and uniforms, $500. Communications, $9,000. IT services, $2,000. Software programs, $500. Maintenance of building structure and grounds, $800. Fuel, $20,000, which is a reduction over last year's budget, but it's an increase over the actual cost from the last fiscal year. Maintenance and operation of vehicles, $13,000. Maintenance operation of equipment, $2,000. Other contractual services, $115,000, and that is for dispatch services. And this current amount actual, the $97,000, is still short 1/4 that hasn't been received yet, so it hasn't been paid out. $800 for membership and dues, and that totals $996,000 for the police department. Again, with a large portion of the wages in the special revenues fund.
Just a question on that, I'm sure the answer's the same. So, yeah, how is that done? You got salaries and wages are 217,000 less. You've got interfund reimbursements are 322. It should be less, not a plus there. See that? I mean, you're doing 0 for this year, and you had, so you got that should be a negative, not a plus. And then the fringe benefit. I mean, how is that?
So the fringe benefits, the $313,000, that's a decrease. And the reason for that is in the new software system, we break that down by the individual cost for the salaries. So prior we had fringe benefits and it was lumped together in one amount. On this budget now we have longevity pay, incentive pay, holiday pay, overtime expense, health insurance. Before it was all rolled up into one amount.
So it's more of a accounting change than
Correct.
an actual cut to the
Yes,
police
exactly.
department budget. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Fire department will start at office expenses, since their wages are in the Measure M fund. Office expenses are staying at $750. Safety equipment remains at $10,000. Special department expense, $3,500. Training, $3,000. Staff recruitment, $2,500. Small tools and small equipment, $4,000. This was for some hoses and ladders is what that expense is for. Clothing, $1,000. Communications, $7,200. Utilities, $13,000. That was raised because it had last year's budget, it was under budgeted there, so they actually had overruns, so that was increased. Maintenance of buildings, structures, and grounds, $8,000. Fuel, $15,000. Maintenance and operation of vehicles, $13,000. Maintenance, here, I think I may have that off of vehicles. Oh, of equipment, $6,000. I'm sorry, maintenance and operation of equipment, $6,000. I'm gonna skip through there and then down to a transfer out of $20,000. The last item, $9,700, and that's to try to start paying back some of the interfund borrowing that's taken place over several years, and we're not really seeing a lot of movement on that, so I'm hoping that we can start
Is that gonna clear up the thing where the police money paid for the fire department building?
It's going to be a very small beginning to
Okay, so
clearing
that's
that up.
starting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
That's the public safety fund that's being divided, police and fire.
Another one was the arena and the tertiary planner or something?
Mhm.
Money for the tertiary planner or something?
Yeah, there was a piece of property that sold that was used, the money was, the proceeds was used to build the arena, there was a payback contract.
It was borrowed from, yeah.
Right,
from the
that was
church.
never fulfilled or had a plan, actually, so that's good, thank you, Larry.
Yeah, I believe, just 1 minute, let me pull the exact amount. There's currently $1,560,000 worth of interfund transfers in the general fund. So hopefully, a little bit at a time, we'll get
How
that.
long will it take to fix? Years?
Yes.
How long would it
80
get there?
years.
You can't just balance it all out and say, okay, now, actually, the fire department's in debt $1 million and the police is okay and the arena's in the hole and tertiary's okay? You can't just
That's
do
a
that.
darn good idea.
With our new auditors, we will address that, because.
Because I brought this up before, and they said it's impossible. Why is it impossible? I do it
Yeah.
at home all the time. I'm sure you do.
With our prior accountant, he did not want us to do that, but with our new auditors, we are going to see what we can do
Okay,
to
good.
try to move forward on this, because it is very complicated the way that it is right now.
It doesn't really capture liabilities, that's the biggest problem, I think, I mean, it's an actual liability, but it's not recorded as such, it's recorded as a borrowing, which that's.
There was one other item that I went past, and I just wanted to bring to your attention. In the building we haven't even got there yet. Okay, I'm sorry, we'll continue on. So with that, the final amount of projected expenditures for the fire department is $115,350, which is, which is significantly higher than what they actually used last year with the transfers, but it's lower than the $160,000 budget that was budgeted last year for them. Okay. On to the planning department. Their expenditures are projected at $144,554. There's allocation of staff salary in the top portion. As we drop down, currently, the professional services for the planner is $56,000, but I believe those are the planning services are currently out.
Yeah, that's out to RFP, correct.
So that may change, depending on how that contract goes. And the $80,000 expenditure is for the SB2 grant, and that's 50% of that grant that we talked about in the revenues. This is the offsetting expenditures to that revenue. And that is going to be used for general plan and housing ordinance work.
I don't know if this is gonna change anything, but we all agreed, I don't know, a month ago to put planning out the RFP, but we are now employing 2 planners, I believe. Are we paying for 2 planners? April's still getting paid, and this new,
You have a person who's doing office hours here. They're all from the same firm.
but is April still getting paid?
Oh,
So we
yeah.
have 2 planners on the payroll now instead of 1, so.
Yeah, we actually have 3, because Beth does it as well, who's
So we got 3.
the owner or principal of the mill.
I thought the planning services was on a retainer. Or is that just the city attorney? I thought they were on a retainer.
They're not,
They're
Hourly.
hourly, right,
Okay.
according to
Yeah.
That's what, yeah, I
Is
just,
there a big project?
this.
Is there a big
Right.
project that's driving it right now?
that might change.
I'm sorry, is there a big project driving while we have three people working on the same, just different projects, I assume,
I know that April was working on the SB2 grant, and I don't really know what the other planners are working on. I did ask De Novo for a breakdown of their wages, and April's hourly salary is $105. Beth's is $105. Marty's is $105. And Jeff, who's the new person that is doing office hours, he is $80 an hour.
And who, how did they decide to bring three people in here and work for us with, did we ask them to do that?
Because we voted to get rid of them, that's how we
Well,
roll.
but
No, I
did
think-
but did we ask for that additional service?
I think that they bill, what they're billing is billed to the, whoever the project proponent is, right? It's not billed to the city, I mean, it's in the fees. So if they're looking at a project, then they bill that project for their time, so the city.
Right, but the majority of their cost is to the city. It's not billable. It doesn't get billed back out to somebody else.
They're billing hourly for
Yeah,
their time.
they're,
Right,
I mean, the other two were
but
hired.
is that not reimbursed by, you know, the project?
Some of it, not all.
some of it is billable, but the majority of it is not.
And I'd like to know what it is.
Well, and then I'm gonna come back to my question. Why do we have three people? Did we ask them to bring people?
Well, we asked,
people in?
when the COVID hit and April had some health issues and wasn't coming in and doing office hours, we asked for Jeff to come in and do some office hours.
Okay, so that's
April is still doing the planning commission meetings and the work with the planning commission. Beth, I believe, was working on part of the SB2 grant as well.
So, but those costs are being billed directly to the SB funds, correct? Because those are all grant funds that are paying for the work to be done on the general plan.
There is a match portion to the grant that is not in the general fund.
Well, I think to be fair, you have to look at it like we hired a planner, not April. We hired their group.
Their department,
to work
yes,
for
I
us,
got
and,
that.
mean, And sometimes they throw a bunch of bodies at it, get it done faster, maybe it's better. for
Which
one.
is fine, but
Right.
do we have, I mean, given our current state of affairs, how much
Yeah.
work do we have?
Well,
Do we
right.
have that much planning work to be done?
There's some things that we're still working on from the city standpoint. The SB2 grant is probably taking the majority of the time right now.
Right, which great, because
Right.
that's free money and we'd like that and we need our general plan updated. So, great, but do we have, I mean, is he coming in and sitting in here and not doing anything, just waiting for work to show up?
Yes, it depends on what we have for him, but he does work on other things.
Yeah.
I don't know what April's having him do.
He's doing some things on the SB grant too.
Yeah, and April's doing, working only Tuesday and Thursdays for 3.5 hours at home. So any questions that we have during the week, she only works on those 2 days. And then Jeff comes in Tuesday, Thursday, in case there's anybody that needs to have questions about their projects or different things like that. And
Okay.
that's kind of where it is right now.
Okay.
Continue, didn't mean to smack that behind.
so that department will most likely need to be adjusted depending on what happens with RFP once that whole process is completed. Okay, the building department. Within the building department, we have one building official budgeted and one 50% time assistant budgeted. That totals $121,641. And then the benefits are all listed and So if we jump again down to 6111. I just seen one thing here. I did budget $8,600 of unfunded liability into this department because we did have a prior full-time building inspector, and that's where those costs came from. So there is a cost for that.
So, Brooklyn, do you mention a subtotal on for the two people working? I can add it up, I guess, but the 121 and 29 and all that, probably about 150, I guess.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm sorry, Master. I was just trying to figure out the building officials, what the cost to have a building official assistant is. It looks like it's this.
We budgeted, I think, 65, right, Lori?
Just a second here.
Basically, lines 15855110 to 855298. Is that what you're saying?
I don't have that.
For both officials, that's like the first 8 lines or 10
So
lines.
the assistant is pretty minor cost. I believe it was 65,
That's
67
something.
thousand for the building official, and then there's also allocations. There's allocations of other staff that helps with the building department as well.
Okay.
But, especially, I believe Mary does quite a bit with the building department, so I think a good portion of her, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head right now, but a good percentage of her salary is included.
Okay, so that's basically 3 employees roughly. Okay.
The office expense was decreased from $2,400 to $1,400. Special department expense stayed the same. Training was decreased from $3,600 to $1,600. Staff recruitment, $3,000. And as you can see, as we go through here, because we didn't end up hiring anyone, building official last year, this budgeted expenditures from last year was never utilized. It was used in the professional services down below, but not for an employee. Advertising, $600. Communications, $1,400. IT network services, $900. Software programs, $7,500. This is because the building department continues on the iWork software program. They're not on the Cassell that everybody else is currently on. They're still using the iWork, so.
Does that integrate with our system or not?
No, it will not integrate with it, and Mark was a little resistant to conversion. He was afraid he was gonna lose some data.
Okay, so I guess in theory then, if we go out and we hire a full-time building inspector, we would shift on to our program then? Is that what the plan would be, or do we have a thought? I'm just a high level, that I'm not sure if that's possible.
We would be looking at switching everything over to Cassell.
Okay.
If you're gonna make the change, make it so the new person coming in
Correct.
is working with that and with that alone.
So that, I guess that begs my question then, so have we budgeted for any other equipment they're gonna need, computers, et cetera?
There's some costs in here. Part of it is the special departmental expense. There's $1,800 there. There's an existing computer in the
Okay.
building department right now.
I was just curious if there's gonna be some startup cost to having our own guy, that kind of thing. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Well, if we do go with that route, are we still going to have to maintain the iWorks data?
We would just, during the time that we're doing the conversion until,
So you're going to, but you said they are not, you can't convert them to one to the other. Oh, yeah, I looked at
we
that.
can't bridge it into.
They won't talk to each other, but you're going to convert the data over?
You do already, I assume, correct, or no?
I'm sorry, what was
Do you
that?
convert it already manually?
No,
None of this time.
Just
no.
for the fees and stuff, or that kind of stuff? Or
no, it's all in iWork.
no? Okay.
Is Kenneth's salary increase?
Kenneth's salary, yeah,
Monthly.
she's the 50% second employee up at the beginning. Yes.
But she's the one that does building.
Yes. Professional services for the building inspector last year was $290,000. And this year is budgeted at $175,000.
And we anticipate that number going down in terms of, as we move forward with the hopefully finding somebody to do it on, on staff, or go out to bid, to look at other building inspection options. As council is aware, the engineer's contract, which includes the building official, expires June 30th of 2021. So there will be the process of going out to bid relatively soon. And then at that same time, looking at advertising for a full-time building official.
But if it's expiring June 30th, then it won't affect this budget, it would affect the next budget.
It depends upon, in terms of, let's say you find somebody, when you advertise, and like I said, if we start now, you might be able to find somebody for building in January, February. That would have a small impact on this.
Okay.
But one of the things in terms of trying to look for people anywhere in the public works, you're starting to find more and more, it's becoming more and more difficult to find them. And the communities that are basically stealing other people's. So there's a challenge there.
Okay. So within that line item, the current budget is $145,000 less than what we paid last year. So, I mean, it's gonna be hard to even meet the 175,000, considering the actual cost last year was 291,000. The professional services for legal within the building department is $5,000. Capital expense for vehicle, $5,800. Interest expense, $4,500. And transfer out, $20,000, and that is an interfund principal reimbursement for the $180,000 loan. As is the $4,500 interest payment is interest due to that other fund that loaned the money.
That's a part of the 1.65 million total, if I'm right.
Yes, that is a portion of it. So this department last year was over budget by $170,000. And a portion of that was because we had only budgeted $30,000 for the building inspector, because we were going to hire the in-house building inspector. So that's where a good portion of that came from. Engineering, the top $5,200, that's allocations for other staff. $38,000. Let's see what's going on here. I allocated this, the engineering costs out, and I'm trying to remember what projects John was going to be.
We have some wastewater projects. And there's some street projects, potential street projects.
Okay, that is going to have to be adjusted.
Okay.
There's going to be more than $2,000 that will be allocated to the engineering department. And then the billable engineering services are $100,000. So that's expenses that we pay and then we turn around and we bill to the developers for engineering services. The Public Works Department, the top portion is their salaries, which is the same as it was last year with a 2% increase. Account number 6111 for office supplies remains the same, $500. Chemicals and fertilizers is the same. Special departmental expenses, $3,000. Training, $800. Staff recruitment, $500. Small equipment and tools, $2,000. Clothing and uniform is $200. And the reason for the reduction in that is it is now included into the payroll expense in uniform allowance at 5224 up above in the payroll expenditures. Communication, $600. Utilities, $65,000.
Any of that utilities, is that taken out of the solar field we got started? Is that going to change anything? I know because they changed some rules about, you don't have to be like right next to each other. You can actually, across whatever you owe PG&E, they can actually deduct it off of that.
No, that is still conversation we're yet to have related to solar panels on the fire department stations and out at Howard Park.
So there's currently no reduction in the public works right now for the solar fields. The reduction, we'll see that when we go over the wastewater
Yeah.
treatment.
I just know there's a way now, we're talking about later, but they can connect the other grid to the grid, I guess.
You can.
It's a true up at the end, is what they
Right.
call it.
Well, I guess that was kind of my question too. I don't want to get, we're too ahead though, but it's like, how are we going to allocate that? Somebody to figure that out too, because if you've got a solar field that is generating all kinds of electricity, larger for the sewer plant, but it's also giving some gains every place else, how do you figure that out?
Well, what happens is when you build it for the sewer plant, and if you're gonna use these other accounts, then you gotta make it big enough to cover those other accounts, and I don't know if that's what happened, but. So,
Yeah.
you have to generate an excess amount of power, so that you can cover your other, areas.
But that's also too, how do you figure out, how you spread that out across everybody else and how to allocate that? I don't want to get too far into it.
The recommendation would be to put solar panels on the roof of the fire department, on the roof of the two fire departments and out at Howard Park. And then again, for this building, be able to tap in from there and leave the
Right.
the wastewater, kind of the solar field there, kind of separate to cover wastewater.
I think like more like the CFDs around town where there's street lamps that'll be powered by the same grid possibly because of all the true. I mean, that's just, I don't want to get into it, that's just kind of what I think.
Right.
That's part of the road now.
Maintenance of building structures and ground is $38,000. Maintenance and operations of pool is $34,000, and that $15,000 contract is included in that amount.
And that does also include the ARSA cost for running the pool?
Yes.
Okay.
Any of the supplies as well, anything that pertains to the pool is in that. Fuel, $5,000. Maintenance and operation of vehicles, $3,500. Maintenance operation of equipment, $8,000. Engineering, $2,500. Professional services other, $16,000. And I'm not remembering off the top of my head what those other costs were.
I have to go back through my notes too.
I'll mark that and get back to you, because I'm not thinking of what that, I'm on page 16. Professional services legal is $7,000. Membership and dues, $1,000. Capital outlay, buildings, $128,000. That is $78,000 from the per capita grant and $50,000 from the county grant for the roof, if that is received.
For the roof of. So why is that under public works then, and not under
Parks.
parks?
Well, this is kind of the Public Works
Public
Parks
Works,
Department.
Parks,
Okay.
Yes.
It's still.
It encompasses
Transportation is separated out.
Okay.
Capital outlay other than buildings, $100,000 for.
I'm sorry, your 128,000 is inclusive of the potential 50,000, or would it be increased by 50,000?
It's inclusive.
It's in there.
78,000 for the per capita and 50,000 for the roof.
Okay.
And the remaining, the per capita was actually 178,000, and the next line down is $100,000, and that's for the per capita as well.
Thank you.
And those costs are for parks, is what those expenditures are going towards. Interest expense, $2,300, and principal, retirement of principal is $7,700, and that's for the principal on the existing lawnmower. Lori, yes?
That 16,000 in terms of professional services other, is that for the parking lot?
No, I wouldn't classify that as professional services other. That's for some work that someone is doing for us.
That's what like I said, the parking lot is, in terms of somebody sealing the parking lot. I know we talked about that, and then we talked about whether or not that's eligible for an impact fee. Because when we do the tennis courts, we're gonna have to do some ADA parking. Okay, that's just where the thought was in
Yeah,
terms of.
I'll have to look that.
Okay.
I'll have to look that one up. So the Parks Department total is $591,639. And on to general services, this is where expenditures that cover several departments across the board, this is where these amounts are budgeted. Workman's compensation is $55,000, and that's $55,000 of the $92,000 that is due. OPEB expense is $36,000, that's retiree health insurance. CalPERS unfunded liability is $30,000. Office expense is $18,000. Payroll processing fee is $9,600. Special departmental expense, $1,000. Communications, $28,000. That includes AT&T phone service, 8x8, and any of the expenditures that are directly related to communications but are shared across the entire city hall. IT services, $10,000. Network services, $13,000. Software program, $14,000. This is where I was talking about a little bit earlier. This is the monthly subscription for the software, for the financial software, in addition to Office 365 and some of the iWork expense as well. Utilities, $22,000. Maintenance of building structure and grounds, $16,000. Audit expense, $22,000, and that is double of what the actual cost should be because we have not completed the last audit, so that $11,000 is rolling into the current audit. I do not foresee that it's going to be that much money, but we're gonna double it just to be safe. Professional services other, $3,500. Contractual services, $4,000. This is the insurance that I was talking about a little bit earlier, and this is going to have to be raised. Right now it was budgeted at $42,000, and it went from $78,000 to $92,000, so that's going to have to be increased. Property insurance, $26,000. Membership and dues, $6,700. Interest expense, $35,000. That's to cover the interfund borrowing from other funds. Bank charges and processing fees is $4,500. Miscellaneous expense, $3,500, and transfer out, $20,000, and that $20,000 is the transfer for the interfund reimbursement to get that rolling along. The total of the expenditures for all departments is $3,077,237.
On the CalPERS unfunded liability, have they indicated what they're gonna do? Is it going up or down, or staying the same? Are they, any movement there at all? Or
Every year it has went up.
with COVID-19, they're just, I think they probably have to, but, I mean, they're in a bad spot.
They don't care.
I know they don't care. You're right, I want to
Just
get
don't care.
that. You
No, they
know. It's not
don't.
lost on them.
So was the OPEB actually that low, or is it because now it's in other departments?
No, that is the total OPEB right there. That is the all-encompassing of everything.
Well, that's nice. And then, memberships and dues in 2018, why was it so high, 29,000?
I believe that memberships and dues, I believe that
The
Amador Recreation,
Amador County Recreation
Or
Acro,
that was the,
that
that
was,
was like 21,000, I believe.
I thought that was in the pool expense.
No, they,
Oh,
It is.
that's the
the pool is, but not the actual membership fee.
Oh, okay, sorry.
They did,
Wrong one. Yeah, got it.
That was dropped this year to what, 15,000, something like that?
Yep.
I don't know off the top of my
Okay.
head.
I know it went down because of the COVID thing.
Yeah, it's because they're not providing many
well,
services.
it went, looks like it went down in 18, 19, right?
Well, it was moved, the expenditure was moved to, I
Sure.
believe it went into the, Public Works.
Right, that's why it's kind of hard when you look at these things, it's like, you go, oh, wow, great, we saved some money, but we did, actually, it's just moved somewhere else.
Yeah.
So once we get this software and, you know, like one programmer or whatever, that's why it has to be consistent, because you really can't tell, looking from year to year, whether you overspend or underspend, because it could be somewhere else, so
Exactly.
gotta watch out for that.
Next year will be better.
The good news is, yeah, going forward, hopefully everything's coming.
As long as everybody follows the same count numbers as what Lori's following. You know, like you don't put it in somewhere else, because it's like, oh, well, it could, because a lot of things could go here, or it could go there, I find that.
Exactly.
So you just gotta be consistent, you know.
You're the only one that can create new cost centers though, right?
Mhm.
Okay, good. So, yeah,
It-
they can't create their own and just decide to put it somewhere
And it sounds,
miscellaneous, otherwise not classified.
They can move it within a line item of their own department if they want it reclassified, but
But it still has to go through you. I mean,
It's
it
still,
has
you still
go
have
through
to create
finance.
that code, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, there's
good. So you
limited,
have some-
there's
you have-
very limited access in
Yeah.
terms of who can change things on that software.
Good.
You know, we may be able to look at it and look at the reports, but you can't change anything just,
No.
well, it
You
sounds
don't
like
have-
too, with the audit going forward, we'll be able to have some more clarity on some of those other issues too. That
Well-
should also be some more changing around, but at least we'll have everything, you know, we'll be dialed in. Because then we'll have two audits coming about the same time, so
Yes.
hopefully they'll see some, yeah, that's good.
yes.
What I find though is you can code things incorrectly, that's what I'm saying. You can put it, someone could go, oh, it's, you know, this, is it landscaping or is it, say for us, is it landscaping or is it golf course? This is all the same kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so sometimes you get it coded wrong. So it's important that, you know, the people that are coding the invoices coded correctly, so.
Is that something where in the policy, whatever, we have a listing of what specifically what each coded line is for? Is that something we have written down, or? that
We
is
have
something-
a chart of accounts that
Yeah.
shows every, I have a report of it here somewhere, that shows every different account code that we have for every department.
That kind of details what each one's for then, or? Very good.
Yeah.
That might be useful for the council. That's something when I first came on, it was one of the first things I got was the code, the accounts code, so I can kind of read what I'm looking at.
Okay.
That'd be great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. A lot of hard work. We really appreciate everything. I mean, I know it's been a major task trying to get everything turned over to one system, which is great. I mean, it's been a long time coming, but thank you so much. Appreciate your dedication to it. It's been
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
And just a reminder, the next meeting is Tuesday, the 29th. So we'll go through the other funds.
At that time, I'll have that information for that one line item I wasn't sure of. And if there's any, as you're looking through it, if there's,
I was gonna say,
if there's additional information that anyone wants, a printout of what the actual individual expenses were within a line item, it's very easy for me to do that.
I would actually like to get the contracts for the soccer, the Little League, and the arena.
Okay. I have the software here, I don't have.
Yeah, we can get that.
Has there been any communication between us and them?
I've talked to them, yeah. Like I said, I knew that they weren't going to be playing, and I talked to them about, not being required to pay simply because they're not. I mean, it's one of those, everybody was kind of hurting during the COVID, and it's,
All right, so no further council questions. Gonna go ahead and open it up to public comment.
Yes, I'd just like to bring up one thing. I looked under your cash expenses for 3 months. The engineer, we paid him $258,000 in 3 months. We could hire a full-time building inspector and an engineer for $258,000, and this is only for 3 months. How come we ain't doing this? This is crazy. That figures out if he gets that every 3 months, that's $1 million a year. We're paying one company when we could have an engineer here, have a building inspector when we need him, and he could do all the sewer engineering too we're gonna have to do. It just don't make a lick a bit of sense to me. And I'd like to thank Lori, she gave us a copy of what Epperson asked for when she first got here. You give us a copy of all the list of all the numbers, give it to everybody. I'd like to compliment on that. That was the first time in years, you know what? And I just had to bring that up. I couldn't believe the cost of that in 3 months, even though I know they're doing stuff, but we could hire $150,000. I think you'd get an engineer anytime you wanted, and he'd be our building inspector. Thank you.
Is there any public comment from the phone? Nope. I don't know. I can't see it, so I don't know. I have to ask. Hearing no further public comment, I'll go ahead and close public comment. We'll move on. And I guess I'll reopen public comment on the closed session. Closed session is on conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, City of Ione versus Ione Hotel, legal counsel anticipated litigation, real property negotiation, and appointment of police chief pursuant to Government Code Section 54.957B.
Under property negotiation, government code requires that the name of the people being negotiated with be made public, and that's not included in the agenda declaration. So if you would, I'd like to know who we're negotiating with for those 3 parcels.
the Gold Village development.
Seeing no further public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, and we will adjourn to the closed session.